When you think of Massey Ferguson, you probably imagine the big, powerful tractors that made history in farming. But what about the ones time forgot? In the 1980s, Massey Ferguson released a lineup of machines that were ahead of their time, some innovative, some underrated, and others that simply faded into obscurity. Today, we're bringing those forgotten workhorses back into the spotlight. From hidden gems to models you may have never even heard of, this is the untold story of 10 forgotten Massey Ferguson tractors from the 1980s. Let's dive right in. Number 1. Massey Ferguson 3050 and 3060 series. By the early 1980s, the agricultural machinery market was under immense pressure. Farmers worldwide were dealing with financial uncertainty, shrinking margins, and a rising need for versatile equipment that could deliver maximum utility without breaking the bank. Massey Ferguson recognized this and moved to refine its mid-range utility lineup. The MF 3050 and 3060 became prime examples of tractors designed not to wow with flashy statistics, but to quietly excel in everyday jobs. These tractors were powered by modest yet durable diesel engines, tuned not for high top-end horsepower but for low-end torque. This made them ideal for loader work, mowing, baling, and other tasks where steady pulling power mattered more than speed. Operators quickly appreciated the broad, flat torque curve, which meant less gear shifting and better fuel economy during long workdays. The mechanical simplicity of the 3050-3060 is another reason they earned a loyal following. Controls were straightforward, free from overcomplicated electronics that could fail in harsh field conditions. Routine servicing, oil changes, filter replacements, or clutch adjustments was designed to be done by the farmer with basic tools rather than requiring a specialized dealer. This practicality was crucial at a time when farmers were cutting costs wherever they could. Versatility was baked into their design, with 3-point hitches, mid-mount PTOs, and multiple implement compatibility. They could easily switch between loader work in the morning, mowing in the afternoon, and baling in the evening. For small to mid-size farms, especially mixed operations with livestock, the 3050-3060 series often became the daily driver tractor. Massey Ferguson's global presence meant these tractors weren't confined to one market. They were sold in Europe, the UK, Australia, and beyond, each market tailoring them to local needs. Some saw service on estates as general-purpose machines, others in municipal fleets, and in certain cases even repurposed for non-agricultural roles like firefighting pump carriers. Because they lacked the glamour of high-horsepower models that dominated farm shows and marketing campaigns, they've often been overlooked in tractor history. But for many farmers, their value was measured not in bragging rights but in decades of reliable service. Even today, many 3050s and 3060s remain in use, proving that quiet dependability often outlasts headline performance. Number 2. Massey Ferguson 3125 and 3130. Agriculture is as diverse as the crops it produces, and tractors must often be adapted to specialized environments. In the 1980s, Massey Ferguson tackled this reality head-on with the creation of narrow-track tractors, specifically models like the MF 3125 and 3130, designed for vineyards, orchards, and intensive horticulture. Unlike broad-acre tractors, these machines had to perform highly specific tasks, working in tight rows of grapevines or fruit trees where every inch mattered. Standard farm tractors were simply too wide, too tall, or too heavy for such delicate operations. The narrow-track MF models offered reduced wheel tread, compact cab designs, and low overall profiles that allowed them to slip through rows without damaging crops. Engineers faced a delicate balancing act. Reducing the tractor's footprint increased the risk of instability, especially when carrying heavy sprayers or harvest attachments on uneven ground. Massey Ferguson solved this with careful weight distribution, low centers of gravity, and durable suspension setups that kept the tractors stable even on sloped terrain. The cab options were another standout feature. Many were fitted with protective canopies or enclosed cabs with filtration systems to shield operators from chemical sprays, dust, and heat, a necessity in vineyards where spraying fungicides and pesticides was routine. TTOs were often configured for specialist speeds to operate grape harvesters, pruning saws, or orchard sprayers. Because these tractors were highly specialized, they were rarely mass advertised. Their buyers were typically vineyard or orchard operators who knew exactly what they needed, and MF dealers often worked directly with farms to customize the units. As a result, production runs were relatively small compared to mainstream models. Today, surviving 3125 and 3130 are fascinating relics. They represent the unsung machinery of specialty farming, working silently season after season in environments most farmers never think about. Restoring one is both a challenge and a reward. Parts can be difficult to find, and many units were heavily modified by their original owners. Yet they remain a window into a niche of 1980s agricultural life, where precision and specialization mattered more than raw horsepower. Number 3. Massey Ferguson 3000 Series. During the 1980s, Massey Ferguson's 3000 Series tractors became the backbone of many European farms. But certain variants fitted with Perkins engines deserve special mention. While MF built tractors with several different engine suppliers, Perkins-powered versions earned a reputation for being the commuter tractors, versatile machines that could handle nearly any daily task a farmer might throw at them. Perkins diesels were already household names in Europe, known for their smooth operation, strong torque delivery, and bulletproof reliability. By pairing these engines with the 3000 series chassis, Massey Ferguson created tractors that struck a balance between practicality and performance. They weren't oversized or intimidating, but capable enough to handle everything from tillage to transport. Farmers appreciated the predictable torque curve, which made them excellent for pulling mid-size implements without frequent gear changes. Their road manners were also highly praised. Perkins engines offered smooth acceleration and consistent pulling power, which made the tractors ideal for transport work between fields, villages, or regional markets. This commuting role was critical in Europe, where fields were often fragmented and road travel was an everyday reality for farmers. However, despite their popularity in certain regions, these models became forgotten for two reasons. First, MF's model lineup was confusing, with overlapping numbers and market-specific variants. A farmer in France might own a Perkins-powered 380, while a farmer in Germany had a different spec under the same badge. Second, by the late 1980s and early 1990s, tractor technology was moving rapidly toward higher horsepower, electronic controls, and new transmissions, leaving these middleweight workhorses behind in marketing and memory. Today, the Perkins-powered MF3000s are ripe for restoration. Their mechanical simplicity, widespread parts availability, and generalist nature make them perfect for small farms or hobbyists. For enthusiasts, they're a reminder of a time when tractors were designed to do a little bit of everything and do it well. Number 4. Massey Ferguson 390 and 390X. While most Massey Fergusons of the 1980s spent their lives in fields, the MF 390 and 390X carved out a second career in industrial and municipal roles. These tractors demonstrated just how adaptable a farm machine could be when given the right modifications. At their core, the 390 series were solid, mid-sized agricultural tractors. But in the hands of contractors and municipalities, they were converted into industrial workhorses. Modifications included stronger front axles to handle loaders, hydraulics tuned for fast loader cycles, and heavy-duty tires designed for construction sites instead of crop fields. Many were fitted with ROPS-S rollover protection structures or fully enclosed industrial cabs, offering better operator safety in harsher environments. In urban and industrial settings, their simplicity was a major asset. Unlike specialized construction equipment, the MF390s were easy to maintain, inexpensive compared to loaders or graders, and versatile enough to switch between hauling, grading, snow removal, and municipal mowing. Contractors loved their maneuverability and low fuel costs, while towns and cities valued them as multi-role machines that could keep roads, parks, and public works running. The trade-off, however, was that many tractors lost their agricultural identity. Painted in industrial yellow or municipal livery, modified with loaders and attachments, they became construction machines in the eyes of operators. By the time they were retired, their origins as Massey Ferguson farm tractors were often forgotten. Today, finding an unmodified agricultural 390 is becoming rare, as many ended up in industrial service. For restorers, these tractors represent a unique challenge. peeling back years of modifications to reveal the original farm machine beneath. They stand as proof that a good tractor design can cross industries, from plowed fields to city streets, and still deliver dependable service. Number 5. Massey Ferguson 1100 series. In the 1980s, Massey Ferguson understood that not every farmer needed or could afford a high-horsepower machine. For smallholders, rural households, and developing markets, affordability and efficiency were more important than raw pulling power. Enter the MF 1100 series compact diesels, some of the earliest attempts by MF to deliver truly economical tractors tailored for budget-conscious buyers. These tractors weren't glamorous, but they were workhorses for the everyday farmer. Compact in size, they could be easily stored in small barns or sheds, maneuvered around tight plots of land, and fitted with small loaders or mowers. Their engines were modest in output, but designed with torque in mind, making them surprisingly capable when pulling plows, powering small balers, or running PTO-driven pumps. One of their strongest selling points was fuel economy. During a time of economic strain, farmers wanted tractors that could run all day without consuming excessive diesel. The 1100 series delivered on that promise, and their mechanical simplicity meant repairs were straightforward. Owners could often service them themselves, keeping costs low. These tractors also played a major role in mechanization for developing regions. Massey Ferguson, with its global presence, marketed the 1100 series in areas where farmers were transitioning from animal labor or hand tools to mechanized farming. For many smallholders, these tractors were their very first experience with powered agriculture. Despite their importance, the 1100 series rarely feature in Western tractor histories. Because they were targeted at smaller farms and developing markets, they were often assembled regionally and didn't receive the same marketing attention as larger models. As a result, they've been largely forgotten outside the communities that relied on them. For collectors and restorers today, the 1100 series represents a fascinating chapter of tractor history. Machines that might not impress with size or horsepower, but which played a crucial role in expanding access to affordable mechanization worldwide. Number 6. Massey Ferguson 375-390 series. In the late 1980s, Massey Ferguson launched the 375 and 390 series, tractors that were rugged, straightforward, and designed to survive in some of the toughest agricultural environments worldwide. While they weren't flashy, they became trusted companions on small to mid-sized farms, especially in developing markets where affordability and dependability mattered most. The MF 375 and 390 shared a reputation for simplicity and strength. They were powered by Perkins diesel engines, which were already legendary for their fuel efficiency and long service life. Farmers didn't buy these tractors for cutting-edge innovation. They bought them because they could be repaired with basic tools in the field, often without needing a dealership. That level of independence was a game-changer for farmers in Africa, Asia, and parts of South America, where dealer networks were sparse. Their design reflected pure practicality. Operators praised the tractor's straightforward controls, uncluttered dashboards, and mechanical reliability. Hydraulics were robust enough for daily work with loaders, plows, and mowers, while their heavy-duty build gave them surprising pulling power for their size. They were equally at home plowing fields, hauling wagons, or running threshers, often serving as the mainstay of small mixed farms. A key reason these tractors faded into the background is that they weren't marketed aggressively in North America or Europe. Instead, Massey Ferguson positioned them for export, particularly to regions where durable, affordable tractors could transform agriculture. As a result, many Western collectors tend to overlook them, even though they were pivotal in expanding MF's global footprint. Today, the MF 375 and 390 remain icons in places like Pakistan, India, and parts of Africa, where they are still widely in use. Their ruggedness, ease of maintenance, and global impact make them one of the most important, yet often forgotten tractors in Massey Ferguson's 1980s lineup. Number 7. Massey Ferguson 8200 series. Every major manufacturer has its share of experimental projects that never make it to full-scale production. And for Massey Ferguson in the 1980s, some of the most fascinating were the 8200 series prototypes and short-run models. These tractors represent the almosts of MF history, machines that could have changed the direction of the brand if timing and finances had allowed. The 1980s were a turbulent decade for agriculture and for MF itself. Economic instability, shifting ownership structures, and the need to cut costs forced the company to make tough decisions. Despite that, MF engineers were hard at work exploring new concepts in ergonomics, transmissions, and cab technology. Some prototypes featured hydrostatic transmissions paired with torque-sensing clutches, a setup designed to offer smoother operation while retaining pulling power. Others experimented with cab pressurization systems aimed at improving operator comfort in dusty environments, particularly relevant for arid regions and harvesting operations. A few prototypes even trialed different approaches to emission control, anticipating regulatory shifts that wouldn't fully hit until the 1990s and 2000s. These experiments demonstrated Massey Ferguson's willingness to push boundaries, even during financially difficult times. Unfortunately, most of these models never advanced beyond limited production runs or dealer demonstrations. Parent company politics, budget constraints, and cautious marketing meant that innovation was often sacrificed for survival. In some cases, only a handful of units were ever built, and today those surviving examples are considered museum-worthy curiosities. For tractor historians and enthusiasts, the 8200 series almosts are fascinating because they revealed the direction MF engineers were trying to go, even if they never got there. They remind us that the story of agricultural machinery isn't just about the models that succeed, but also about the ideas that never quite made it, yet still influenced future designs. Number 8. Massey Ferguson 620, 630s. While most Massey Fergusons of the 1980s were destined for plowing fields and pulling balers, the MF 620 and 630 stand out as tractors purpose-built for non-agricultural roles. These low-profile machines were engineered with turf care, airport maintenance, and municipal services in mind. Environments where delicacy, visibility, and specialized attachments mattered far more than raw horsepower. The defining feature of these tractors was their low-slung design. By lowering the center of gravity, fitting smaller wheels, and compacting the overall profile, MF created a tractor that could maneuver safely on golf courses, parkland, or airport grounds without causing damage. Reduced ground compaction was critical for turf management, while excellent operator visibility allowed precision when mowing around obstacles or working in pedestrian-heavy environments. Their PTO systems were tuned for mowing equipment, flail cutters, and brush attachments rather than plows or planters. Engines were quieter than their farm counterparts, often fitted with extra muffling and soundproofing, important in airports or public spaces where noise reduction was a priority. Some models even featured cab insulation and sound shielding beyond what was common in agricultural tractors of the same period. Although production numbers were relatively low, the 620 and 630 filled a vital role in municipal mechanization. Parks departments, airports, and even large estates adopted them for their ability to do jobs that traditional farm tractors would have been too bulky or too rough for. Today, they are niche collector's items. Restoration circles dedicated to municipal and industrial equipment nostalgia prize these low-profile tractors for their uniqueness. Unlike mainstream farm tractors, many were retired from service with relatively low hours, making well-preserved survivors surprisingly common. For enthusiasts, they embody a specialized but important chapter in Massey Ferguson's adaptability. Number 9. Massey Ferguson 275-290 series. When people think of Massey Ferguson tractors from the 1980s, their minds often jump to the high-tech 3000 series with its new cabs and electronics, or the heavier machines built for big-acre farms. But tucked quietly into that same era were the MF 275-290, part of the company's legendary 200 series, which proved that sometimes simplicity and steady performance were more valuable than cutting-edge technology. The MF 275 and 290 were medium-sized tractors, designed specifically to meet the needs of small to mid-scale farmers who needed a machine that could do just about everything. At their heart were Perkins diesel engines, already legendary in farm circles for their durability, strong low-end torque, and fuel efficiency. Depending on the version, these tractors offered between 67 and 80 horsepower, not numbers that would grab headlines at a farm show, but plenty of power for the everyday jobs that made up the backbone of farming. And that was exactly the appeal. These weren't tractors built for bragging rights. They were tractors built to work all day, every day. They could plow and cultivate in the morning, pull a baler in the afternoon, and haul wagons in the evening. Farmers came to see them as true all-rounders, reliable companions that could shift between roles without needing expensive upgrades or specialized attachments. A big reason for their success was their design philosophy, practicality above all else. Massey Ferguson made sure these tractors were affordable and easy to keep running. Open station versions were the most common, keeping costs low and giving operators the flexibility to hop on and off quickly when working with livestock or small fields. The hydraulics, while not flashy, were robust and predictable, giving steady performance with a wide range of implements. Farmers could trust that the three-point hitch and PTO would deliver exactly what was needed without constant tinkering. Another important feature was parts compatibility. Massey Ferguson deliberately designed the 2075 and 2090 to share many components with other models in the 200 series. This wasn't just clever engineering, it was a lifeline for farmers in regions where dealerships were few and far between. If something broke, odds were good that parts could be scavenged from another MF tractor or found locally without long, expensive waits for imports. That kind of practicality made these tractors especially popular in developing countries, where downtime could mean real financial hardship. Of course, their very dependability and simplicity is part of why they've been somewhat forgotten in tractor history. They didn't have the glamorous marketing campaigns of larger MF tractors, and they didn't introduce groundbreaking technology like powershift transmissions or electronic controls. In brochures and magazines, they rarely got center stage. Instead, they quietly worked in the background, day after day, year after year, often becoming the most important machine on a small farm, without anyone realizing just how much they accomplished. Yet if you travel today through parts of South America, Africa, or Asia, you'll still see MF 275s and 290s hard at work. Many have been in service for decades, often with multiple owners, patched together with local ingenuity, and still running reliably. In countries like Brazil and Nigeria, they are still praised as the tractors that helped farmers modernize without going into unmanageable debt. Their role in making mechanized farming accessible in these regions cannot be overstated. In the West, they are sometimes overlooked because collectors and restorers tend to focus on bigger, flashier machines. But for many working farmers, especially those on small to mid-sized operations, the MF 2075 and 2090 were the tractors that kept the farm alive. They were affordable, efficient, easy to repair, and versatile enough to take on almost any job thrown at them. In that sense, the 275 and 290 embody a truth about farming machinery. The tractors that change lives aren't always the ones with the highest horsepower or the newest technology. Sometimes it's the unsung workhorses, steady, reliable, and always ready to work, that make the biggest difference. And that's why the MF 275 and 290 deserve their place in the story of Forgotten Massey Ferguson Tractors from the 90s. Number 10. Massey Ferguson 399. Among Massey Ferguson's 1980s lineup, few tractors have the same collectible mystique as the MF 399 and its limited edition or special finish variants. These tractors weren't mechanically groundbreaking. They were built on existing platforms, but their trim packages and design flourishes make them one of the more unusual chapters in MF history. The 399 was released as a higher trim option that offered premium features. Enhanced instrumentation, climate-controlled cabs, chrome accents, and occasionally special paint finishes. These touches were meant to appeal to farmers who wanted something more comfortable and stylish without stepping up to larger, more expensive machines. However, the timing was problematic. The late 1980s were marked by economic challenges in agriculture, and many farmers simply weren't in the mood to pay extra for premium trim when margins were tight. Dealers, too, hesitated to stock models that required careful marketing to justify their higher price. As a result, production numbers for these limited edition 399 were relatively low. This scarcity has since turned into collectible appeal. Surviving 399s with original trim are now sought after by collectors who appreciate their blend of utility and luxury. They represent a quirky attempt by Massey Ferguson to experiment with market segmentation, creating tractors that weren't necessarily different under the hood, but which offered a different ownership experience. The 399 stands as an oddball in MF's 1980s catalog. Not a flagship, not a budget model, but something in between. Its rarity today makes it a prized restoration candidate, especially for enthusiasts who enjoy owning machines that are both functional and historically distinctive. And there you have it, 10 Massey Ferguson tractors from the 1980s that history almost forgot. These machines may not be as famous as the brand's iconic models, but they played a huge role in shaping farming during that decade. Which of these tractors do you remember? And did we miss one that deserves a spot on this list? Let us know in the comments below. Don't forget to hit that like button if you enjoyed this trip down memory lane. Subscribe for more classic tractor stories and ring the bell so you never miss an upload. Until next time, keep those engines running and the fields thriving.